with us. You got a forum in mind. So I'm going to call to order the service committee meeting, and Pam, you'll determine that quorum.
Yes, Madam Chair, we do have a quorum. If you like, I will call the roll, please. Mr. Brennan? Mr. Burgess?
Present.
Ms. Gleason?
Present.
Ms. Mood?
Here.
Ms. Herbert?
Here.
Good. All right, and then I just need a motion to adopt the agenda.
I make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Thanks, Ms. Gleason. A second? I'll second. All in favor? Let's- I guess you call the roll again.
Yes. Mr. Brennan? Mr. Burgess?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess. Ms. Gleason?
Yes.
Ms. Mood?
Yes.
Ms. Tracio? Ms. Herbert?
Yes.
Right, so we'll move to number 3, and that's the Midlands Transit Riders Association update. I see Walter with us. Go right ahead, Walter.
Okay, thanks. I noticed that on Sunday that the trash pickup is being done at the bus stops. So I'm glad that that started back up again. The riders seem to be adjusting to the new schedules that are up in May, and that seems to be going okay. I've talked to a few people who didn't know that it had changed. Some of the routes had changed a bit, but we're trying to get that worked out. And then the other thing that we talked about in the Soda Cap meeting that Pam had a month or two ago, there's quite a few of the spots where the schedules are in the transit station, that there are quite a few of the spots that are taken up by the brochures on how to ride the bus and stuff like that, which most of the riders who are in the transit station really don't need to have that. And those routes or those spots within the where the schedules are can be used in other ways to put out more schedules, because the schedules seem to be going away kind of quickly. So maybe that needs to be looked at again. But other than that, that's about all we got. And I just trying to stay cool.
Can I make a comment to that?
Sure.
Yeah, I'd like to address part of what Mr. Durst said. If I'm new to riding the bus and I need to know how to ride it, where am I gonna go for the information? So that's why that's in there. And we
I-
realize that people who are familiar know how to ride, but if I'm looking for information on how to ride, then that seems to be the logical place.
What I was hearing was that maybe just less space for that.
Less space for it?
Just-
Yeah,
Yes,
we can
just
do
a
that.
reallocation of spaces. Did I get that right? Walter?
Yeah,
More room for.
there's like,
and-
right now, I think there's like three sections in that area where they have those brochures. Maybe cut it down to one might be helpful.
Thanks. And Ms. Gleason, I believe, had a comment.
But just, I guess, whether I'm going in that area or not, but I do it purposely. And then, but the journey. So I just like for the thing that support all of my life. You know, and I don't know if I should be there, but I know. But that's my point.
So I think what I'm hearing is we are in agreement that we need to have the information on riding present and available, as well as the
Right.
people in the transit center answering questions, but also we may need more space right now, for particularly where schedule times are changing and things that so just to be sure we have an adequate space for schedules. Okay. All
We
right,
have
any other
clarification
questions or
on that, am I
comments?
correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, then, well, thank you, Mr. Darcy. We'll move on. Our next
Thank
item
you.
is adoption of the minutes, but we didn't have minutes in May because we didn't have a quorum, so there are no new minutes to be approved. And we'll move to 5A, the passenger amenities programs. Oh, there's that here from Davis and Foley. Go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon. And I'll go ahead and report on the last 2 months kind of together. So in the past 2 months, we've continued coordinating with SCDOT regarding, there's a couple of outstanding permit applications that we have with them. And we've just been trying to get them any information they would need to approve those. And then also in the past 2 months, AOS has completed 4 additional stops. Those were stops number 1184, 697, 1101, and 717. Outside of that, there's additional information in the report, but I'll answer any questions you have.
Okay, does anybody have questions for Mr. McGee? I do have a comment. You know, we've had that item on the Forest Acres site for a shelter pending for some months, and our notes always say that we're waiting for input from Forest Acres. So I did have a chance to talk to Andy Smith, who's our board member from Forest Acres, about that, and of course, DOT is the one that has to give the final approval, but he's aware that DOT is waiting for Forest Acres government to say, yes, go ahead. And what they're dealing with is a couple of issues of businesses in the area. They've done a substantial amount of work on that in that area, particularly since the flooding, and done a lot of improvements. And there's some businesses there that are reluctant to have a shelter, largely because, well, partly because the shelter, they had some difficulties with the shelter across the road at Trenum Plaza with particularly apparently one person who just sort of made that home away from home, and they've had trouble with they just in terms of authority and personnel and all that, trying to relieve that problem. Andy thinks that one thing that's a positive step is that they now have a local, I think they call it an urban camping ordinance, that gives them a little bit more leeway to not just have people stay in the shelters, loiter in the shelter. But I was thinking that he and I talked about it, and about the possibility of our trying to see whether there are other kinds of ideas and creative ways to address this issue, whether it's the placement of the shelter or the design of the shelter. I know we have a number of shelters which don't lend themselves to people stretching out and on a bench or having so much space that you can put a sleeping bag in. And so, Pam, if your staff, given the public relations focus, could just have some conversations with those folks at Forest Acres to just see if, looking at the area and at the design, whether there are any things that we can spot that might make it more amenable. I mean, we have a bus stop there, and so it's not a matter of people not being able to get on and off the bus, but that's a significant commercial area, and so it'd be really nice if people didn't have to wait in the, without any shelter. But I would just say, if we've had this as a pending issue for a good many months now, and so if we can take some initiative to just see if there's some creative solutions that we haven't thought of up to this point, but that's really the issue for them. Did anybody have anything to contribute at this point?
Ms. Moon, I
Yes,
have a
please.
question. My question is, why is that here on the side of, you know, I let it shut the other day, and I can look around, and like, and all the time, that would have her stuff in that stuff, so I wasn't sure when it. So I found out.
I think that's probably the kind of persistent occupant that we would, that they were talking about. So I'm glad to hear you say that that's been relieved, and I'm getting a signal from Walter that when Ms. Cleve speaks, they're having a hard time hearing on the, on that. So if there's a way to magnify that, that'll be good. But thank you for that input.
You're more than welcome.
If there's anything, not anything else to ask, from Zach, let's move to 5B, which is the, transit operations report. Mr. Cooksey.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I got quite a bit of information to get through here, but I did want to just make sure, I didn't get an opportunity last month to acknowledge our employees of the month. For TCS, our subcontractor on the paratransit side, it was Ayana Whitfield. She is a service line lead and does an excellent job. And has 5 years of service. So we wanted to congratulate her, as well as Malik Saeed, who is one of our commercial driver's license instructors. He has been here 8 years, and they both do a fantastic job. So I just wanted to make sure that I got a chance to shout them out, and they're going to help continue to do a great job for us.
Thank you, and we congratulate them.
And shifting over to this month, like I said, quite a bit of stuff to talk about. I also have with me today, and he'll speak for just a few moments when we get later into the presentation, Mr. Charles Hall, who's our safety and training manager. I know I mentioned over the last couple of months, I would have him come in and tell us a few things that are happening and what has happened. So he'll be here to kind of share some things with you on that. And as I'm talking, I will announce the what slide I'm on so everyone can kind of keep track with it. In reference to COVID-19, as of 6/1, when we were putting this information together, we did not have anyone that reported any cases in reference to COVID-19 or have been quarantined. You know, we have been blessed here over the last several months to be in a good position related to that. A lot of it has to be the work that was done previously by the comment and by RITP Dev in reference to making people aware of what's in front of us and opportunities on where you can, you know, whatever decision you make, places where you can go and take care of that. So we continue to have some success there. However, we, you know, obviously keeping our eyes on it. It's something we can't take our eye off of, and operating, you know, accordingly. As we talk about our customer service, so this is good, this is interesting. So we had an increase in our customer service complaints versus April, but we didn't get a chance to talk about April because April we had really an all-time low. It was an amazing month of April. Even though we did have an increase, it's still low overall if we're comparing over to the previous months. What I did notice and what I did like to see is that we did have a decrease in both our safety and reliability complaints. And you know, reliability has always been our number one category, our number one complaint. Now, we don't have enough data since we've launched to really do a deep dive, but I'm very excited to do one because I really want to see where those issues are they pass ups, or the people are saying they're early, they're late. You know, what will be the new norm, as you might say, or where, you know, where can we focus our attention? But out of the gate, you know, the decrease is I'm glad to see that. That means something's working, and we're just going to dig deeper into that. So overall, we're exceeding our goals in reference to our goals for our complaints, for the contract. Next thing is launch day, and I put this slide in because I thought it was a great engagement opportunity. May 8th was Mother's Day, and it was also the day we launched our new service, as you might say. And so the team had gotten together and said, hey, let's do spa kits for all the mothers, sisters, daughters, nieces, and so forth. And we thought that was a great idea. What a great way to launch a new service and also to show our appreciation. So I just put in a few slides of those bags, and they contain some great stuff, I was told, facial kits, soap and scrubs and lotions and all that fun stuff. So we continue. One of our things here that we pride ourselves on is just engagement with our operators, engagement with our maintenance staff, and just doing those little extra things that make you want to show our appreciation, and that you want to come and be here, come and work here, rather. Turning over to maintenance. So we continue to do an awesome job, with our preventive maintenance, scheduled PMIs. Ronnie's team is Johnny on the spot on this, or should I say Ronnie on the spot, switch it up. They do an excellent job just staying on top of this throughout the month. So again, kudos to his team. And as we look at our total miles between road calls, again, we had a tough month in April. We had some issues with our fluids and so forth, but the team was able to get that rectified, and we were able to exceed our goals as far as our total miles between road calls for the month of for the previous month. So it looks like we're back on track there, and more of an anomaly, I think, than something that that we see on a regular basis. So very excited about that. On-time performance, this has been all consuming, and I put in a few slides in here, and I'm kind of going to spend a few minutes talking about some different things in different areas here. For the month of May, we finished at 64.55. Now I included the time that before the program launched. So that's everything, being that we're capturing the whole month. Even with that, we are looking at an increase of 37% compared to what we did in April. And as far as DART, again, DART does an amazing job consistently hitting their target or exceeding their target. Again, they slightly down, but still operating at last month at 90.06%. So kudos to that team for continuing to stay aggressive in meeting that goal. Looking at our May 8th service change on time performance. So from the 8th through the 31st, we finished at 71.2%. And I know we haven't seen that number since I've been here anyway. And so that's a 51% increase compared to April, if we're just looking at the launch date. And if we're looking at including May 1st to the 31st, through the 31st, we kind of exceeded that. That number just was able to, I guess, eclipse that number if I use the whole month. So I think what we were seeing in April, and considering April was higher than previous months at 46%, because when I came in, we were like 39, 40, so there was a lot of work to do even to get to the 46. We were kind of chipping away. And then we made the big leap to where now we were able to hit that number, and consistently, the more and more work that is done, and I'm going to talk more about that, we're going to start to see that number creep up. We did the heavy lift, and there's still more phases to go. And that's what we're currently working on now. I see Mr. Hubble's online. He's a key contributor to hitting this number, and also a key driver in our next phase as we're continuing along with Mr. Leroy, as we start to work on these numbers and kind of fine tune the little issues that we found.
Well, that really is where my mind was, because I thought we're getting the benefit of that first big wave, which
Yeah.
was huge and wonderful. And I'm so encouraged to see the kind of jump that made. But I wondered if we were at a point where the rest of it was going to be a hard slogging through, but it sounds like there's some things that you think are going to make a difference.
Yeah, so the answer to that, it will be hard. And, I'm not going to pretend it won't be. However, there are opportunities that are sitting on the table now with some adjustments that need to be made that we'll see a little bit larger incremental changes.
Could you give us an example of
Well,
what that
sure,
might be?
I brought with me, we've identified at least 30 opportunities or
You probably
corrections.
don't need to tell us all.
Yeah, yeah, Hey, I got it, just to let you know, I'm prepared. It's very in-depth and the team identified all these issues. And we work with the team every Wednesday and we go through each item step by step and talk about, what correction needs to be made, who needs to make it, and what is the time frame that it can be made within. So without going into all 30, we have managed to chip away at several of those, and we're going to continue to do so. And as we do so, we'll see incremental changes.
Well, I'm appreciative that you're staying focused at that level of detail on the things that can need to and can make some movement and improvement.
Absolutely.
Because I agree with you that this is something we just have to stay on top of all the time.
Absolutely. So what you'll see and what my experience has been is we'll be able to make some changes now. We do have to be careful that they don't impact the actual, what the customer sees, right? But during each service change, you should always have adjustments, minor adjustments. We should never go without a service change without some type of a tweak, because that means you're constantly working to get better. The issue is when you lay stagnant and you use the same thing for year after year, service change after service change, you get where we were. And so the culture has changed, our mindset has changed. Moving forward, we want to constantly be making those tweaks and those changes. And to this depth, basically this is the new norm. I don't see it changing. It should not change. If looking at the next slide, this is just basically a,
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Burgess.
I had my hand up for quite some time, but I guess these.
Sorry, I don't
computers
see,
just
I'm not where I can see you on the screen, so I.
don't-
thanks.
Okay,
Thanks for speaking.
I just need some clarification on, are we saying that from the 1st of May to the 8th, we were 64.55?
well, what I'm saying is from the 1st of May through the 31st of May, we're 64.55.
Well,
So
what,
that first number includes 1 week before the changes.
Yes,
And then, and the 3 weeks essentially after the changes, all in one.
that's correct.
Okay,
so that's why we're seeing two numbers?
that's
Yeah,
right.
yes, sir.
Why was it necessary to show the first number rather than just the 7102?
Well, because I wanted to show you where we were and because the project started 8 days into the month, and I know we report out monthly. So I just wanted to share, just in full transparency of what the entire month was, including the changes that were made and then what had not been made. So that way, all the numbers or everything is on the table to show, being that reported out for the whole month. I didn't leave anything out. That's why I chose to do that.
I keep hearing the word changes, but you are aware some of these changes need to have board approval before they instituted?
These were the corrections in the system that were a part of the plan that was a combination of the effort of RapDev and the Comet staff and Mr. Hubble. So these were not
Actual
major
route
service
changes?
changes, they were corrections in the
Right.
system.
That's correct.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
You're welcome. So the next slide, which is a graph, it just really more so kind of reiterates the 8th through the 31st, just really showing you where we ended up versus where we were. So just more kind of a colorizing that other one, just to kind of show you a graph. Something that Mr. Hubble had shared on his on-time performance graph, it kind of breaks down per day of week. And I pulled this, it was through the 29th, and that's what we had at the time that I put this together. And it kind of shows you where we're strongest and where we're weakest. This is a great graph because it kind of shows us, like on Fridays, we know we struggle on Fridays. There's more traffic, there's more people out. I mean, it's payday for a lot of people. There's a lot of activity. And so we've seen, and I'm not just seeing that here, it kind of follows track with the other organizations I've been at, on Friday, we tend to see that dip. And then we bounce back up. So
Because it's hard to stay on schedule
It's a
with
little
the
tough on
increased
Friday.
traffic.
yes, traffic, there's just more people out. We find ourselves on Fridays. And, you know, this is a good way to kind of measure where our strengths and weaknesses are throughout the week. You know, maybe where we need to kind of focus on. And, you know, whenever Friday gets here, everybody loves Friday going into the weekend, but if you're an operations person, you probably don't. Because you're like, oh, okay, Friday, come on, team, rah, we got, you know, let's go. But I just wanted to show you this, that we are constantly, you know, obviously looking at every aspect of this daily, you know, we can even break it down even further, monthly, weekly, and so forth. So I thought that would be a great slide to add in, and we'll be adding that in, you know, going forward, just looking at our weekdays and where our opportunities are throughout the week. You know, one of the things that came up when we were rolling out this project, for me as the general manager here, you know, at the comment was, okay, we've got this massive project in front of us, and we knew there was a lot of data and things that needed to be analyzed and so forth behind the scenes. But, you know, how do you shift the culture? Because what we're attempting to do is a culture shift in the sense of really focusing on our schedule adherence, you know, increasing our customer service, our safety. It's a full shift. So, you know, the way I approached it, I just wanted to share it, I won't take too much time, is really in three phases. You know, there's really unfreezing the belief. And you always hear, you know, we've always done it that way, or there's no other way to do it. This is how it looks, and we're not, you know, there's no need to make a change or an adjustment, you know. So it took a lot of just talking, asking a lot of questions. You know, what have you done before? What did it look like 2 years ago? What did it look like last week? And, you know, once you kind of get through that, and that's a lot of the heavy lifting that Mr. Hubble was part of us unfreezing, because there was a lot of data that needed to be analyzed, and there was a lot of different things in different places, lots of stories. Everybody has a story, right? So once you feel comfortable enough to really, okay, we know that that's not the right approach. We have a new direction. You know, we have a goal that we're trying to achieve. And you need to do A, B, and C to reach it, right? So the next thing is really setting the behavior. And that's training, information training, and more training. And I put role models here because within that, which is another benefit of all of this, is you'll start to find those rising stars once you unfreeze what was, and as you begin to move forward. So, and Mr. Hall will talk briefly about some of the training that we did in order to try to shift the change. And then once you've actually set the new behavior, and we're still in that phase, and we're still learning things, there's still things that we're doing, but we're still kind of setting that new behavior and those beliefs, is then you got to lock it in and freeze it. So once we reach our goal and attain it and achieve it or exceed it, that's when we lock it in. That's where you have to make sure that all the procedures and the processes and everything that you did to get to that goal is captured, and that's your new culture. So that's how I approached it, and will, you know, continue to do so. And I just wanted to share that because I just wanted everyone to hear in my mind how, because you hear all the other stuff when we say, well, we're going to change the culture. What does that really mean? Well, this is what it means to me, and this is how I'm moving to try to work to do that in all areas. So I wanted to share that. And that's why we're seeing, in addition to everyone's help, a shift in that first step was such a huge step, because this is the driving force of that, right? Part of that, in unfreezing this, what we learned, okay, we had this big frozen block. Okay, once it thawed out, it's, uh-oh, I see we have a need. There's something missing here. We wouldn't have known it unless we unfroze it. And that is, on the next slide, this is Operations Control Center. This is a place where it's a center where all of our information flows through that one center. And the purpose of it is to be proactive. So when dealing with, schedule adherence issues, creating, controlling situations before they happen, what we have done previously was very reactive. A lot of times just a reactive industry. Something happens, okay, we need to do this. The mindset, the change of the culture, now we've got to be proactive. We need to be able to see the problem before it arises. And that is easier said than done if you have not done that, or if that has never been your direction. But we discovered when we're doing all these different adjustments, but now we got to be able to make sure we see them before they happen on the street. That provides better customer service and scheduled adherence and safety. And if you go to the next slide, I actually put in the pictures of our new Operations Control Center. I'm very excited about it. And we, as you can see, we have we have large monitors in there. I mean, we're able to look inside the buses now, for emergency situations, which we've always been able to do. But now we're kind of capturing this in one place. We're able to see if a bus is running early, if it's running late, who's supposed to be on the bus. We're able to communicate a lot better. So this is new here. I had the pleasure of opening an operations center some years ago, trying to mirror that because that one's still very successful in Orlando. And I think we're off to a good start. We've got new people in here, so we're still training. This is all part of that role modeling piece I was talking about. So the goal long-term is to continue to build this out. I have one workstation in there now. Eventually I'd like to have the resources for a second. But in the meantime, this is up and running. So you're always more than welcome to stop by and see how that works. Because some are fascinated on all the different screens and how you move around on the screens and what is what and where is who is who. So we're going to continue to groom our team in there. But I just wanted to show you, this is also part of the on-time performance project that you don't see. These are the things that are happening kind of behind that. So just wanted to share that with you, and I will move on to the
That
next.
sounds like a positive initiative to me, and I'd be real interested in visiting that one day and seeing it in operation, because I think it impacts the work of the committee, because what this sounds like is that where we've been monitoring the reports we get, and then when something shows up at an end of the month report is not being on target, asking to go back and see what went wrong there. And what I hear you describing is that you'd be attuned to that in process, so that I can see that impacting what we have to do as a committee.
Absolutely, and that is where we're headed, to be able to log, capture daily what was going on in those days that may have impacted service or safety issue, or, we're working towards that and establishing that and building this. Really, it's like a department, and it's its own entity, and working on building that out.
Well, my other thought was when in your culture change, when you talked about new behaviors and beliefs, it seems to me that there's a way to, in this process, for drivers to be encouraged to raise up things that they identify as something that they have a new idea about how it could be handled. Because if that's an expectation of the culture that we're all problem solvers, it seems to me that would make a difference too, instead of hoping that nothing goes wrong or hoping that nobody catches that as a problem,
Absolutely. In fact, of the 30 opportunities, many of those, I'd say at least 35% of those were from operators who brought that forward, captured it and said, okay, now we'll start to research it. So I like what you said. We're all problem solvers. This all belongs to us.
Yes.
So the goal, and Mr. Haller talked briefly about it, was owning it. This is everyone's opportunity. This is everyone's, we serve the public, with public servants. And everyone needs to be, in my opinion, part of the solution. And we'd like to have ways or opportunities for people to do that. So this is what's been happening, is the direction we've been moving forward in doing so. Going on to all aboard slide. what we're seeing is that we saw a 3% increase compared to last year. So anytime I see an increase on anything, I'm happy, right? You know, there was a lot happening last year, 2021 as well, but we did able to scratch out an increase over what we were doing last year. So that is, I love to see that. Previous month comparison, you know, a decrease in ridership, and that more so can be attained to reduce service on our USC. But 11% isn't far off from, even with that, from what we did last year. So I'm not discouraged on that number. And as I know, we'll continue to obviously look at ridership very closely, along with the comment on, and always open to whatever ideas we can help to increase ridership, working with marketing and, you know, along with our planning department in that area. The next slides are average daily ridership, just kind of gives you a nice little snapshot. Hopefully I haven't missed anything. And as you can see, again, what we did in 2022 versus 2021, you know, that not that large of a gap. Now, if you notice last year, which is very interesting, I think I spoke about it 2 months ago, we really see a lull in June and July. So I'll be interested to see, as we all will be, what our monthly ridership is going to look like during those kind of dog days of summer, as the heat gets on us in June and July. But, you know, some say that, you know, traffic patterns have changed. So maybe we don't see those heavier declines like that. Maybe we meet that and exceed it. So this will be interesting the next 2 months, because things are so different this year than they were last year, right? So we'll continue obviously to look at that. 2 things we included in, you know, just to kind of break up something different than we had done previously, kind of our top 5 route increases versus 2021. Probably no great surprises there. Again, this is something we just kind of added in to see if you like seeing it. We'll continue to kind of show it like this. And then also, in addition to that, we also show both our increases and decreases. So
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I'd like to ask Mr. Coetzee, with this major reduction in USC ridership, do we have a comparable showing of expense reduction?
Yes, we do. Mr. Leroy, you want to add?
It would just be service.
Yeah,
We don't run the same number of routes. So
right.
We shift to summer service.
Right, so I didn't know if you wanted to have the financial analysis to show, but yes, the number of routes and service actually decreases when the number of buses are actually out. Would that answer your question, or are you looking for?
Yes, but you know, a lot of information is good, but if it's not relevant, it isn't good. You know, we know that some of these students are reduced. So when you list all the routes, so that doesn't show like it's route reduction when they're gone. So at what point in this presentation do you have routes that were reduced or not run in these months that we have this big reduction?
so do the routes, change in frequency during the summer at the university?
Yes, we have just regular semester service, which we're running, what, total of how many routes? 12. And now we're in summer service.
So that's
And it's-
similar to the way we do fixed route during the week and weekends.
Yes.
It's the same concept as that.
Yes, because, you know, it wouldn't, you know, be feasible or from a business standpoint to continue to run routes that there's no service or demand for. So that's why we have to adjust to what we call summer service for USC through probably the middle of August. It's when we'll go back to full service.
And you all are still meeting, I expect, with the university folks so that they are part of those.
Yes, I think we
decisions
met
on
with
where
them,
that-
was
how
it
the
yesterday?
plan is
Yes.
going.
We constantly have those meetings, and it's the comment and our ETP dev. So those are constantly ongoing because we have to we can't wait to make decisions. We have to look at and make decisions in the future. We don't want to wait until August get here to make decisions. So with those meetings, we're able to
Ready
even
for
get
it.
them involved in the on-time performance, things that have changed that will impact their service when they come back in August. And so we have to have those type of meetings continue so we can make decisions now that will affect us later this summer and into the fall.
Mr. Burgess, does that address your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we are looking at our DART ridership, and they, provided a lot of information compared 2022, which is current, and versus pre-pandemic, just to kind of give you a real picture of what was happening in 2019 versus what was happening now. And as you can see, there's a decrease across the board in all, just about, well, actually in all areas. Passengers transported, miles, revenue miles, and revenue hours in those areas, which are to be expected. And what you do see also, they're also continuing, even at that time through current, managing to do very well in reference to meeting their on-time performance goals. So again, DART continues to, perform very well, even during these most challenging times, with our most challenged customers who've been impacted pretty hard. So again, we're hoping that we have more of a bounce back this year. We'd like to believe so as things progress throughout the summer and into the fall and winter. But the 2022 is currently what's happening versus the kind of 2019, and kind of show you what that looks like. And we can do more of a 2022 versus 2021. Like on the next slide, you'll see that year to year comparison. And again, you see the numbers down, overall percentages of what we were doing previously. So again, DART continues to, perform the best that they can with what they have. And we're just hoping for a ridership bounce back. So, in total hours and ridership, so.
Well, solving some of the problems of cancellations,
Yes,
that looks significant. I mean, I'm looking at that graph on the same day
Yes.
cancellations. That's startling.
Yeah,
The drop in those.
that is a high number. So, and in fact, I have Mr. Franklin here now. What do you have any comment on the same day cancellations in reference to your what you've seen?
A lot of it's education. What we're also looking at, and we're on the final stages, is an improvement to the software that we're currently using. That's gonna give us faster, adequate, allowing the passengers notification of their canceling the doors, no shows. And we'll be changing up, we'll be getting with Ms. Prince and the comment, going over the cancellation policy and making sure that it's accurate. It's also within the guidelines. And that we're hoping to get solidified probably the next month or two, hopefully. We're just waiting on some contractual stuff. And then once we get that, that's gonna help us notify the passengers pretty much the day that they get up there and we click no show. There's a letter already generated before their driver comes back at the end of the day that we can get sent out, versus having to go backwards and look and try to hit them all up. And plus there's a percentage too, because if you have only 3 no-shows, but you've taken 40 trips that month, you really haven't hit that threshold yet. But if you only take 1 or 2 trips, and out of each of those trips, you no-show both of them, that's more egregious than the other, so.
Thank you, Mr. Franklin. Moving forward into some of our safety numbers, and again, I have Mr. Hall here, but what I will report on our safety first slide, I do have a correction to make. Initially, we thought we had 4 preventable accidents. So I am happy to report, and I'll make the adjustment for the next packet. It was actually only 2. So I'm very happy to see that number start to trend back. And Mr. Hall, and of course, the next slide is kind of safety performance numbers that we normally give, but I know I have him here and I want him to talk about our safety training, safety and training, things that we've done, and also our different projects. Mr. Hall, can you just tell him a little bit about your background and talk about, just briefly talk about some of these items?
Sure. Yeah, my background, I come from 27 years of law enforcement experience. I retired as a police captain from Savannah, Georgia. I also served as the director of transportation for Savannah College of Art and Design, where I managed $100 million transportation contract. I also transitioned then into safety, specifically at Chatham Area Transit, where I served as the chief safety officer. In doing so, I was tasked with putting together a lot of different training. One of the things that I did once I got here, I kind of assessed what was going on. My first day here, there was a passenger-on-passenger assault. So quickly, I recognized the need to have assault awareness training. So we put that on. We also did de-escalation training, along with customer service and violence and safety training during the first 60 days that I was here. We also did some ADA sensitivity training, and during the month of April, I was also a part of the on-time performance training. Recently, I rolled out some active shooter training, and I'll probably be doing it again because I have got feedback that it was enjoyed and appreciated, and that we need to have it again. And one of the paradigms about training and education is that it has to be repetitive so people can actually catch on to it. So some of the topics will repeat themselves. However, the level of in-depthness will change as the environment dictates. Upcoming training will include wheelchair security. If you go outside into the parking lot now, you will actually see that that's actually being administered today. We started yesterday. It will continue throughout the week. And as Lenny mentioned, we have seen some slight decreases in preventable accidents. And I'm looking at rolling out some curbing distracted driving. We noticed that a lot of the preventable accidents are attributed to distracted driving. So we're going to actually roll out training to identify what some of those distractions are and how we can prevent them, across the board. As we also recently rolled out our command center, we're actually going to use that opportunity to institute transit supervision. So our supervisors now will be equipped with more tools to supervise not only other employees, but processes that they may encounter throughout the day. One of the things that we're looking at doing as well from a higher level is instituting NIMS, which is the National Incident Management System, wherein we all, when I say all, that means the common and RTP there, would have to look at how we would manage an event like an active shooter scenario. Because there will be roles that everyone in this room would have to play, but we have to, one, identify those roles, and then try to wrap our minds around what those expectations would encapsulate. And in doing so, we'll also look at how the incident command system works. So how not only will we work internally, but how will we work with the news media, police, fire, and other first responders that would help us manage those types of situations. In terms of projects, one of the things that I noticed is that we really need to focus on safety being institutionalized as opposed to being a person or two people or a department. The only way to actually shift the culture that Lenny mentioned, especially in terms of safety, is to make sure that everyone has a role in safety. So one of the things that I instituted was the mantra that if it is to be, it's up to me. And what that means is that everyone has a role in creating a safe environment, from operators to dispatchers, supervisors to management. One of the things I'm looking at doing is creating a safety Saturday, where we'll take a Saturday a quarter. We'll actually have training. We'll bring in some of our community partners that may be affiliated with safety. And we also have an engagement employee all wrapped into one. We're going to try to focus on having those 4 hours, one Saturday per quarter, where we really focus on engaging our employees with safety initiatives. As I indicated previously, safety has to be institutionalized. I'm looking at developing a safety ambassador program where we tap operators, dispatchers, and supervisors to take on ancillary roles in safety so they can help us identify hazards, help us put together mitigating measures that we can address those hazards with and allow him to have ownership and safety-focused initiatives. And we also hopefully will, by the end of the year, have a tabletop exercise that will involve everyone. So we'll have a make-believe disaster and then allow everyone to contribute to managing and mitigating that make-believe disaster. Are there any questions?
Very comprehensive. And anybody else have questions? Sounds very encouraging.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hall. And moving on to, as far as our staffing, we're currently at 120.
Madam Chair, I do have one question for Mr. Kupsik before he moves on.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to get an understanding of this. On this 51% on-time performance, is that the bus arriving on time, or is that the increase in the correct data collection? I want to make sure what it is.
On these.
Back to on-time performance, is that where you are?
That's correct. Is it the bus arriving on time, 51% increase? Or is that increase is the correctness of the data collection?
Go back to. Make sure I understand that question.
You're looking at the slide that's May 8 service change and shows the fixed route increased by 51%.
Right, well, right, so 51% increase over compared to what we had finished with for the month of April. So that is what that calculation means, and that's based on our departure, our 0 minutes, our methodology, our 0 minutes leave early, meaning not able to leave early, and 5 minutes late. It's within that window that we set to as far as our on-time performance. So the 51% is the 51% increase over our previous 46.98%.
But my question is that the data collection corrected, or is that buses improving on time?
Well, the buses would be improving.
All right, well, my question has been for over a year, if all the buses can get downtown at the same time, how are they late?
Well, there's different time points throughout the system.
That's why I'm asking you, you're going back to data collection when you say time points. Is
Okay.
that the improvement in the data collection rather than the actual bus service?
Mr. Burgess, here's the way I see those things intertwined. One is, I think in part of the corrections that were made were that we had unrealistic timeframes for buses to run certain routes. So in some situations, that just the
But Madam
amount of
Chair,
time that was allowed. for the
Madam
route.
Chair,
Yes.
my question was, if all the buses can get downtown at the same time and leave the same time, where along the route are they late? If it's our time points for gathering the data, it's no improvement in on-time performance, it's improvement in data collection.
Well, yeah, so,
Mr. Hubble has his hand raised.
okay.
Yes.
So,
And Mr. Fergus, Madam Chair, it was, there were several time points along the route. To Mr. Fergus's point, many of the routes were departing the major terminus points, whether they be up at Walmart or Comet Central. They were leaving on time, but the running times between beginning and end of route needed to be adjusted. Some, frankly, needed to be shortened because they were running it it was able to be run too quickly when you compared it to schedule, and many of them needed to be lengthened. We kind of just adjusted them. Some inbounds got adjusted to run longer. Some outbounds got adjusted to run in shorter time to keep the bus moving. So many of those OTP time points that were getting dinged as late were mid-route. And at the time, prior to this adjustment, every bus stop was a time point. Every single bus stop, which is very non-traditional in the industry. So we eliminated some of those time points, adjusted the established time points at major intersections or major employers as an example. And then so there has been adjustments to schedules in addition to Lenny and his team, the reorientation and recalibration, I'll call it, of the operators, and a more working with the technologies that capture this data to enhance their calibration as well. So it was really a multi-dimensional approach.
Burgess? You got anything you want to add to that?
No, I keep hearing the data, but I don't hear anything about service.
Well,
You know, I've been asking the same question for over a year. And I'm getting the data points, the data collection has improved, but the point A to point B measurements on time, you know, you can stand at the transit center and see the bus come and go. So I couldn't figure out where the lateness was.
Yeah, and I can see why when you see all of those buses at the transit center at one point in time, all being in time to have those transfers made, why that question would come up for you. What I was hearing Mr. Hubble say is that many of the changes were mid-route, not just measuring when did they get to the transit center and when did they leave the transit center or when did they leave Lucius Road. But those interim stops along the route, which makes a difference to riders in terms of their expectation of when the bus will come, will be actually the time the bus will come in those interim stops.
And also, all the buses did not arrive at the transit center at the same time. The schedules are staggered.
Okay.
Not all of them arrive at the same time.
Always more complexity than I'm prepared to process in my brain.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
And anything else, Mr. Cooks?
No, as far as staffing, we have a new class starting next week, so we're excited and we're still doing a good job on our recruiting. So
Okay.
we currently have 123 operators and again, a new class next week. So other than that, I'm open for any additional questions.
All right, Ms. Gleason, did you have something? you wanted-
Yes, I did. When I get load up, but y'all those buses, that supervisor, they be road. And they don't be sitting around there parked there forever. They make something, get off the bus, on the next bus.
That's good feedback. We're glad to get that. All right. Okay, so we're ready to move to 5C and that's ridership analysis, but I don't think we have a route analysis in this packet. This might, is Mr. Harris on the call? Oh, yeah, there you are, Eric.
Yes, I am here. We do, I don't think in the packet it includes April, but I can give you a quick highlight on that as well. But for the month of March, during the weekday, we are trending really well. For the first time in a while, almost every route, including UFSC, saw an increase in ridership. Weekday service is up by 24% from February, and in February, well, it's up by 24% from February, and in February, ridership was up by 3% from January. Based on statistical significance, there are no routes this month, meaning the month of March, that we need to monitor closely. So we did pretty well as far as Saturday service. We are down in ridership by 4%. which isn't too bad. And Sunday service is up by 8%. We just need to monitor Route 84 that goes through Stone Ridge, Broad River area. This route has been trending downwards since January. So we just want to make sure we follow that closely. And this is also holds truth when looking at April's ridership report as well. And quickly for April ridership, weekday is down by 7%, Saturday is up by 29%, and Sunday level of service is up by 2%. Of course, there's no issues with Saturday being up by 29%. All those routes are trending in the right direction. But overall, April is pretty steady in comparison to March.
Okay, thank you.
If I may add this one piece as well, Ms. Moot. So we are in the process of working on the annual ridership analysis report that we presented to the service committee and the board in the past. And so as we work through that, we will work on trying to get it scheduled on our on the service committee's calendar after that is complete, and you'll be able to see year-to-year trends and which direction we need to make improvements in with the net service change that would be towards the fall of this year.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Harris? All right, then we'll move on to 5D, the reflex and express route discussion, and that's Rosalind and Mr. Franklin. We have a letter in our packet about this.
Yes, Madam Chair. I was reached out to do kind of like a brief overview of the reflex start, and we find that on page 99 to 100. And I'll just kind of highlight some of the stuff without having to go through it. Transport Care Services is contracted to do the DART service as well as the reflex routes. We currently have 6 reflex routes that we run. 3 of them are active and 3 of them are on demand. The on-demand one, which is the former Route 46, 62, and 74, passengers just call up and say they need a ride, and we have to deviate either the current reflex route, or we have to send a DART vehicle to go pick them up and bring them to their destination along that path. Going through some of that, we're getting those are very few and frequent in between those calls for those on demands. The Route 97 is one of our other reflex routes that does the what's the real term? Is it Batesburg Lead?
Baseburg.
Yeah, Batesburg Lead. That was initially started as a pilot, I believe, in Eric can correct me if I'm wrong, but around June of 2019 is a 1-year pilot. Since then, we've had 28 passengers ride that service. 13 of those were done by Able, which were their travel train. So very low ridership. It runs on Thursdays. It's 3 loops. We have a large deadhead going there and a large deadhead coming back, but that bus rides empty every single day. So I know part of the recommendation from, Rosalind, Finance Director, and I, we spoke, and I did put in there that it does cost the DART around $516.13 per day to run that route. And one of the recommendations we're having is to stop that pilot due to the fact that there is no ridership.
The pilot period started when?
2019.
2019.
It was supposed
And was it functioning through the whole pandemic time, or was it one of those on and off again?
No, it was one of those that it was the pilot, and then once the pilot period ended, the COVID-19 hit, and I think it was just one of those things that we just lost on our radar, and it just continued to run. It never did stop. It always ran on Thursdays and Thursdays.
So at the end of the pilot period, which would have been 2020, that we didn't do any kind of analysis, evaluation, recommendation on making the pilot an ongoing route. It just kind of continued to run as it had.
Ms.
Yes.
Moot, yes. So we did I guess you can say that we did an analysis of where we were. Their route has not performed well up to this point at all. What was recommended from Batesburg, Leesville, if the service committee remembers, they came to us and they had an interest in receiving a seat on the board. From my understanding, the recommendation from that board meeting was to not approve to move forward in that direction. But they did have a conversation about having additional service, which may have warranted additional ridership along that route. But as of right now, the route only operates on Thursday. So basically demand and the level of ridership that you see is based on people who just want to ride on Thursdays. But I'm just providing the context around what's been done up to this point and how we more so got to this place.
All right, so here's what I'm thinking, it would be, the service committee's role would be to make a recommendation to the board if we're gonna discontinue a route. But I'm reluctant for us to make that recommendation without Leroy having a conversation with the people in Batesburg, Leesville about what we're seeing and what's upcoming. And because if they don't see it, I want it to make sense to them what we're doing before we just make this recommendation to the board without having a conversation with them about it. So could we do that?
I will coordinate that between myself and probably the planning department, Eric, and staff. and see.
Okay. Oh, just to alert them that this is the situation and that it's hard for us to justify that. But before we make a formal recommendation to the board to discontinue that route, that you wanted to both let them know the rationale by finding for us and see if they have something to offer that would change the picture.
Okay.
Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. I know that doesn't relieve the fact that we're running a bus doesn't seem productive, but I hate to delay that, but I don't want to leave a segment of our area, our service area out who requested service. I don't want us to just be doing that at a distance. I want them to be a part of that
Okay.
conversation. Okay,
There
so
was-
we'll just consider that. Let you bring us back here an update so that, because if we make a decision next month at the service meeting, that's time to make a recommendation to the board during the same month, so it wouldn't be another extended.
Okay.
Period. Okay.
Also, during an overview, there's some areas that we found some issues that we would, like to try to alleviate the burden onto our passengers. Currently, per the previous executive director, DART is not allowed to operate in any of the reflex areas. So an example we have now is we have a passenger, but we have 5 dialysis patients that are in the reflex 47 zone. So they're forced to get on the 47, transfer over at the super stop at Garner's Ferry Walmart, and then DART meets them there and picks them up. That is causing those passengers to have an additional 2 to 3 hours added to their travel time in the morning and in the afternoon. Some of the passengers have a time to be on the machine around 9:45. They have to be on the first 7 o'clock loop for us to pick them up. They get off the machine at 2:45. We don't get them home till almost 6 p.m. So we would like to be able to, because of the way the reflex routes are designed and how they were implemented, per the National Rural Transit Program, it is defined that we do deviate to everybody on those routes. Therefore, the complementary ADA rules go into effect. DART should be allowed to operate in those areas within the 3/4 mile. That also helps our passengers so that we can get them picked up, brought to their destination quicker, and not have to worry about them being on the buses for over the ADA allowable amount of 90 minutes. So part of our request in going through there is to allow us to operate in those areas. It will help our passengers. There's not much of a cost difference at all for the comment because we're already, working in those areas partly. The other issue that we have is the passengers are coming to us is since they're forced to take the reflex routes, they have to deviate off the route to get to these people's homes. There's a $2 charge that we have to charge them for that. So now they ride DART and their reflex, they're paying an additional $4 more per day on a fixed income, and we want to help alleviate some of that from them by allowing us to go into those areas and just open it up to DART so that we can go in, get those people, get them running, get them where they need to go, and then the reflex routes can stay on time due to the fact they don't have to deviate as much to pick up the ones for the DART passengers.
Okay, so I definitely get the problem for the riders. I get that. Here's what I'm trying to understand. Is I thought we were held to a standard by the federal transportation guidelines or rules that says that DART service has to be provided within 3/4 of a mile of a fixed route. So if a flex route or if those are not fit, so we've not been considering those fixed routes. And is that the point? That if we don't consider those fixed routes, then we don't have an obligation to do DART. And if we say, well, we won't need to run that flex route because we can just pick up the DART patients. I mean, really what we're doing is saying it's kind of open-ended that, well, we'll just, anywhere we're not running a route, we'll just do DART service. Well, we know we can't just do that.
Oh, Madam Chair,
Yes, yes.
when you finish, I'm thinking, and we all are guilty of this. We had an ED that we let almost do anything he wanted to do. We brought in a new contractor and said, make some of those old crazy things he did work. Now they're running into problems. We need to get them to clean up, the new contractor just clean up the system. That's why we have these routes running all kind of ways, because John did everything he wanted to do.
Well, and
And
I'm
we
just gonna
changed
have to
nothing
say,
when he- You know,
we have to start with where we are now, and I hear what you're saying,
Yeah.
but rather than trying to untangle that, what I really think Mr. Franklin is bringing to us is, this is the situation now for people who live near one of these flex routes. And I consider it our responsibility to make decisions for this segment of the area that we can do system-wide. I mean, we can't say, well, yeah, if you live in this section, then we'll just run DART out there. We won't need to have any regular service. It's easier and cheaper for us to just pick you up. I mean, we got a whole lot of our service area that we can't do that service area wide. So I don't want us to, even though my heart may be, why don't we just go take care of these people? I think we can't make that kind of decision for one area that we can't make.
will you accept a
why?
motion? I'd like to make a motion on that he bring that to the board and get the board approval on it, and we won't even hassle with it.
Well, I think the
Because
board
it
is
was
going to
in there at the
expect,
board.
is going to expect some analysis from the service committee that they would consider that we had vetted this carefully. And so I think it's not I don't think we will have done our job if we just say, oh yeah, here's a problem we just pass it through to the
But
board
Ms. Moon-
without some kind of analysis.
Madam Chair, if
Yes.
most of these things that Mr. Andal did wasn't vetted when he did it.
Well, what
Else
we want to do
it
is
wouldn't
we
be
want to do it
strange
right
to-
now and going forward. Jackie?
Madam Chair, if I may, we had a meeting with Mr. Franklin, Dr. Prince and I. Dr. Prince actually contacted FTA regarding this matter. As far as DART entering the flex area, FTA stated that according to them, it doesn't matter. That's up to the agency. That's not a FTA rule where we can't go in and flex area. Also, according to FTA about the 3/4 mile rule, it doesn't matter. We can go 10 miles beyond the fixed route zone if we want to. The 3/4 mile, it says at least 3/4 mile.
That we have to provide it if they're within 3/4 of a mile.
Right,
But there's no prohibition to our going wider. But
Right.
Mr. Burgess, I know remembers this well, because this is not the first time that issue has come up.
right.
To say, well, why don't we just do it within 2 miles of fixed route? Why don't we do it within 3 miles of fixed route? And I hear what you're confirming is that the RTA says, you want to go beyond what we say you have to do, that's up to the system.
That's up to the agency.
It's
according
up to the
FTA.
system, but you have to do within the 3. That's where the dilemma comes up, because what we, and Mr. Fergus, this is what I'm talking about, the responsibility for the staff to present an analysis to the service committee, that we can say, if we do this and, you know, and do extend DART in an area for fixed route, what is the cost of that? And what is the cost implication for anybody else living anywhere else in the service area that decides they would like to have that DART service? I mean, that's the piece that I think
Right.
we've got to go to them with those facts. So if they say, oh yeah, open it up, we know exactly what they know exactly what they're saying yes to. Yes, Mr. Frank.
Yeah, I completely understand what you're saying. When the reflexive routes were designed, so they were designed with a fixed pattern with fixed time points on those patterns, and plus they're allowed to deviate up to 3/4 of a mile off of that route. Once those were defined as that, that's definition by FTA as a deviated fixed route system.
Okay.
Now that's a deviated fixed route system, we have to look into the fact of, according to the National Rural Transit policy, do we, are we deviating for everyone, or are we limiting the number of deviations? Since anybody and everybody can request a deviation off of that deviated fixed route, we have to go adhere to the normal ADA complementary paratransit rules that go into play. The other part with what you're saying, you know, and I, you know, going in those areas and implications and all, you know, there is a little bit of implication there, but we're looking at, on our side, DART can only pick up passengers that are DART certified. So they have to go through ABLE, they have to get certified, they have to go through this whole process. So that 3/4 of a mile that we're able to work in that area, in that zone, is more beneficial to our passengers. But the other part with these reflex routes, we are reporting everything for the reflex routes for NTD under fixed route. So they
Okay.
are a
All right,
fixed.
so let
route
me see if
system.
I'm following you. So if and that terminology makes a difference. If the fixed routes are, if the flex routes are considered fixed routes, and we just say, rather than for these patients who make their lives easier to get DART service rather than ride the fixed route, are they within the 1/3 of, and
They're
within the 3/4 miles of the fixed route? They'd already live within that. So really all that you're asking or presenting to us, proposing to us, is that we treat the flex route as a fixed route and extend DART service to people within 3/4 of a mile of those routes as we do fixed routes.
Correct.
Is that clear to everybody? Okay, is that something that the committee would feel comfortable making that recommendation to the board at this point?
Yes.
Yes, from Mr. Fergus? Ms. Gleaton, Ms. Gleaton? Ms. Gleaton? Ms. Gleaton? Okay, and then, and Ms. Herbert, I know that we hit you with a lot of technical stuff on the first meeting. Do you have a reaction to that?
Honestly, I don't. I had to cut my camera off because I went and printed it out so I could read it more thoroughly. So I don't have a position right now. I did see that Walter put in the chat that we needed a legal opinion on the flex versus dart, but I think that we kind of get that. We got that from their information. Okay.
I'm thinking that's what Dr. Prince and Mr. Franklin are telling us, that for
Right.
all, for the FDA reporting measures, they consider flex routes as fixed route service. And if that's the case, I'm not uncomfortable with our making a recommendation to the board that we provide DART service to fixed routes, to flex routes, with using the same rules that we do to fixed route.
Yeah, and I can agree with that.
Okay, and does that wording make sense to you, Mr. Burgess?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, and we haven't got Ms. Gleason back. Oh, you are. So does that make sense to you, Ms. Gleason?
Yes, it does.
All right, so, well, let's do it with a formal motion then. I don't think I should make the motion. Mr. Burgess, you want to, let me see if I can state what I understand.
Yeah, you can make it. That's good.
All right, I'm going to propose a motion that we recommend to the board that we provide DART service to persons on flex routes in the same way we do fixed routes. Is that covered?
Second. Zone.
In the flex zone.
Zone.
In the flex zone. Okay. All right, Ms. Gleason seconds. Any questions or further discussion? Okay, Pam, would you give us a roll call vote?
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
You're there? Oh, that's you.
Sorry, Will, I was just leaving you out. We couldn't see you.
Sorry about that, y'all.
Ignoring your input.
Mr. Burgess,
Yes.
Ms. Gleason,
Yes.
Ms. Moon,
Yes.
Ms. Tracio, Ms. Herbert.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Wow. That was kind of a tussle, but it was worth doing, I think, because I'm much clearer on that, and I hope the rest of us are too. So that motion passes.
Chair.
Yes,
I'm gonna have to leave.
I know it. We're going.
15 minutes. Can we do soda cap real quick?
Yes, yes, at Pam's request, we're gonna skip down and take 5G next.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I think 5E we've already covered with the operations update. So if we just go to G before we go to,
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the Service Committee, we're excited to report that we've had extensive meetings with the Visitors Bureau, which is Experience Columbia, the South Carolina Restaurant and Lodging Association, Allen University, the State Museum, and the Columbia Museum of Art. With Restaurant and Lodging Association, we're discussing a soda cap event during Restaurant Week, which they're very excited about. And with Allen University, we're talking about freshman orientation, which occurs in August, to bring not only the students, but their parents on the soda cap and into the business districts, so they know what restaurants are available for them to go to. Because presently, as you all know, where Allen and Benedict are, there are like 2 restaurants, which is Kentucky Fried Chicken and a Subway. And this allows them a lot more access into the entertainment and restaurant districts, as well as letting the parents know where they can have lodging and still get back to their children's campus without having to use their car. Experience Columbia said that they will begin to pitch the service to their tour partners, and this is something that has never been done. So we were really excited about that. Blake and I met with them late last week, and we talked about some of the possibilities there. We're also talked about increasing Soda Cap's presence in their annual visitors guide, along with details on how to ride, because we recognize that how to ride is a barrier. People see the Soda Cap riding around and really don't understand how to ride it or what it's for. They'll also help us with the area hotel relationships And we discussed a $10 tour pass for visitors, allowing 4 days of unlimited soda cap rides. Because 4 days was identified as the average amount of stay that people come to visit the Columbia area for a conference or otherwise. I'll be working with Ms. Andrews in finance to ascertain how we can make that happen. So that is coming up. We also addressed the length of the route. As we could probably all agree, the length of the route was pretty cumbersome. Ms. Bowers, Blake and I actually wrote the route and looked at ways to modify that. Blake will talk about that later because he's just done a beautiful and efficient effort in making that route make sense. And also making sure that we're covering all the districts because, as you know, we were leaving out the historic district. We're also going to talk about ease of understanding how to ride. There'll be changes at the stops, meaning QR codes to let you know what direction you're going in, because that's another thing that people didn't know. If I get on, where am I going to wind up? Also, lastly, we're talking about new route maps, which are more destination specific, which will be branded differently than the regular Comet maps. So you understand that it is clearly something that takes you to the entertainment and business districts within the city center. And this map will also be put in Experience Columbia's annual guide. So the last thing I want to say that any and all proposed service changes will definitely be brought forth after this committee approves them for board approval. And I would like to defer to Blake so he can talk about what that route looks like.
Sure. Good afternoon, members of staff and the committee. These new route changes can be found on pages 101 and 102 of your packet. They are quite similar to the existing routes 1 and 2 with the exception of just a few routing changes. So basically what we've done, instead of having route 1 and route 2 that are interlined, we've combined these into one route with eastbound and westbound. So when a passenger is trying to figure out where they need to go, instead of saying, do I need to take route 1 or route 2, which direction, they can say, oh, if I'm going east or west, it's as simple as that. Additionally, with a lot of the stops, we're going to have them be more destination focused as well. So instead of saying Gervais and just westbound, we're going to say Gervais just westbound. This is your stop for the State Museum. Or instead of saying Henderson Blanding, this is going to be Robert Mills and Historic Columbia. With the new routing as well. So instead of going, I'll start with eastbound first. Instead of going on Barnwell to Taylor Street, we're proposing going on Pickens down to Blanding. This will allow us to capture ridership at, there's a USC building down there, federal office building down there as well. But most importantly, Historic Columbia at Henderson and Blanding, we'll be able to capture that before continuing the route onto Hardin Street, as it currently is the pattern. With the westbound side, it's the same exact as it is in the current Route 1, except for we just eliminated Lady Street, just to speed up the route efficiency a little bit, and to allow for that new routing onto Pickens and Blanding Street. In addition to making the route as simple as possible for our passengers to understand, we are going to have QR codes at each one of the bus stops so the passenger can scan the QR code and have that routing information sent exactly to their phone, so they can plan their trip and get access to the vehicles. We've already done some work in the apps with SodaCap. So if you have the Transit app, at least, the SodaCap logo and branding is now on the app with those routes. We've got information coming soon about the headway direction. So currently, Route 1 is an example. It just says Comet Central, State Street, West Columbia for both directions. Obviously, that's not too helpful. So we've changed it now to say this route's going westbound to West Columbia, or this route's going eastbound to Main Street in the Vista. So passengers will be easily able to identify which direction that vehicle is going. Additionally, so with the service and the schedule, I have gone ahead and drafted out a little bit of the service and schedule. But we are proposing going back to pre-pandemic service with Sunday through Wednesday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Thursday through Saturday at 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. And we can also look at more dynamic schedules as well, such as more service during the spring and fall when school's in session and decrease in summer, or vice versa. But we're open to changes, open to feedback. And once again, that information can be found on pages 101 and 102 in your packet.
And I'd like to add one thing to what Blake did when he design what this route looks like. We talked extensively about the access of the students at the HBCUs. We actually added an additional stop along that route, so that they don't have to necessarily go all the way down to 2020 Hampton Street to pick up Soda Cap.
Actually, one thing I will add too as well from the marketing standpoint, instead of having 4 soda cap routes, with this consolidation out of 3, we're going to market it as easy as 1, 2, and 3. 1 being our main route, and then we can, refigure the 2 and 3. 2 could be the Orbit and 3 could be the Fireflies game, but really just, I love that easy as 1, 2, and 3, just make it as simple as possible for people to access these routes and to, boost ridership.
Okay, I'm gonna have a tutorial on these maps on at a time, because what we're saying is on page 101 is,
So 101 is the route map its entirety. So that's the entire route that the vehicle would follow. And on 102 is just broken up a little bit about eastbound and westbound. But what people would see is, we're going to color code it. So
so the route map people would see would be what's on 101.
it would be 101, yes, but it'd just be 2 different colors. So we'd have a, the 2 pictures would on 102 are, one would be color coded for eastbound and one would be color coded for westbound. But they are both incorporated in the 101.
And also the original Soda Cap Enderline route was, Eric and Blake, correct me on this, it was an hour to 30 to an hour to 45 minutes to do the whole route. And now it's,
so I mean, it was about, so with the new routing, it's very similar to the old routing, with timing. With taking off Lady Street, we're able to save off a few minutes there with that left turn on Assembly, and going down Lady. And a lot of the time is it's pretty similar time, just a little bit shorter.
yeah. I think when we wrote it, it took us, and that's just kind of riding it slowly. It took us about an hour, between 45 minutes and an hour to cover the whole route. But I do believe that when it was interlined, it was a bit longer. And I think that was something that Mr. Fergus brought up to me when he wrote the route and noted that it needed to be more efficient. So we're actually open to taking any board members on the route so they can ride it to see where it's going now. It might make it a little bit easier, to see what the concept is.
And that sounds like a good. Me too, Ms. Gleason. And it also sounds like this reconfiguration, that when you're meeting with all of these partners, that it would be before we make a firm decision, that you test that out with them to see how well would this serve your needs of our partners.
That's part of our plan, actually. Many of them have expressed it, when we pitched it to them, they expressed an interest in seeing where the new one goes, so they can start designing what they call jaunts to tell people, oh, if you want to go to Restaurant Run the Vista, do this, just some.
And the maps that have those destinations on them. And if I'm understanding this, we would run buses enough so that even though the whole route takes an hour, that really a bus would come at any place on the route every 30 minutes. Is that right? So, because a 1 hour bus for the downtown. Walt, I see your hand.
Yeah, I just want to say something regarding Soda 3. Friend of mine is moving into it's called Merrill Gardens, which is a retirement facility on Bull Street campus. From Segra. And I was just thinking when I heard that she was going to be moving in there, and I did a little research on that property, which is pretty upscale, that, look at where the grocery stores are in the area. There aren't any. It would be probably a good thing if y'all could maybe talk to them and maybe see if there would be a marketing opportunity with that.
With the Bull Street development.
Yeah.
Bull Street's one of the districts that are covered. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Mr. Harris.
But go out that way, 301, they go out that way.
22.
So, but it's not a lot of grocery stores out in there, because I live right off, Bonneville Road. And you've got to go actually maybe down in 5 Points area, like the Food Lion, or you go on
Either,
Mount
either 5 Points or Publix down in the Vista, right? Right. Okay, all right, so is this really an update, and all you need is our encouragement to keep on proceeding and follow through on that, offering a bus to wait a ride to see exactly what that is. And
I'll-
then
I'll
work
put-
with-
Yes, ma'am. I'll put
Right.
some dates out there to see, for board members to ride. And it may be even beneficial for some of the board members to ride with some of our business partners.
That'd be
So
great.
to hear some feedback and some things that they would be saying.
That'd be great.
I'd be interested. Let me know.
Okay, thank you for
Ms.
that.
Ms. Mood, quick question. Is it our intent to use buses or trolleys for these routes?
Well, right now, we have 2 buses and we have 1 trolley that works. So
And so the total number of vehicles you would need to ride to operate the revised route would be,
I mean, 2 vehicles would be the current route. If you want to do a 30-minute headway, for this route, we need 2 vehicles. With the 1 trolley in operation, you could do a trolley and a bus or 2 buses. But with the current condition of the second trolley, 2 trolleys, probably would not be feasible at this time.
Madam Chair,
yes.
since we are awash in transit money and those are tour buses, that with the open top that are small, why don't we put in a request for at least 3 of them? They usually go with a 80-20 match, and sometimes the 20 is forgiven. We need to look into that, because those big, huge buses will be a complete turnoff with a system we're trying to put up and running.
So you're talking about the kind of tour buses you see in cities that have like
Yeah,
a
Neil.
Rebecca bus.
Yeah, and they're much smaller too, and they have the open top.
I would y'all just consider that?
Oh, we lost it though. Listen, you're preaching to the choir. I love that.
All right, well,
And they're much nicer too, or you go out to the big cities and stuff like that.
And they're much smaller and usually,
let's put that in the hopper with the,
Just to the committee, yeah, things like that we will, look at, but, in discussions that I've had with our grants person, and finance person, with all the other projects that we've gone on, from the low-no grant, the electric buses and everything, we're right now not in a position to go out and buy buses, based on our fleet right now. But those are conversations that we can start having. But it's not one of those things where we're in a position right now, based on my conversation, based on a conference I had been to and asked them those same questions, but, we'll keep asking the same questions. But I think now it's going to be more looking at the fleet that we have and utilizing it and everything. But we will keep asking those same questions.
and I'm thinking too, Laura, since we're not talking about an expanded fleet, because we have the vehicles, we may need to fold this into the replacement. Like the replacement vehicles as they.
Well, yeah, our fleet, we do have a replacement schedule for our fleet, and I know
That's in process now.
yeah, that's in process now, so those dates are given to us by our grants person. But there's a replacement schedule for that. We also have to remember the other project that we have going on with our electric hydrogen cell buses also, that we have to get that project done within a certain amount of time. So that's going to impact our fleet also.
Right, well, I just don't want us to lose that idea in the.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Ms. Mood, in the near term, I strongly believe this is could be a wonderfully unique route, and we need to promote it as a unique route. And I think the method, the bus, the trolley, whatever we use, needs to be unique with a good look to let folks know.
To let
How
that-
this
make
is
that
different.
Stand out. I
And if that
understand.
means fixing up the one trolley we have, I think that's a wise investment that'll pay dividends.
Okay. Okay. All right, well, I don't think there's any formal action we need to take on that, so we'll now go to the Lucius River Super Stop. Is there anything you report there? Except
Yeah,
that
just-
I hate that every green leaf is gone from that site, but you know how I feel about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, everything is well. So 4.65 acres have been cleared. Up to this point, we are 22% financially complete with the project and 45% physically complete with the project. So we are moving in the right direction. I think one positive thing too is that they did go ahead and install the base right there at Lucius and River for the traffic signal to be installed.
See
So,
those traffic lights covered up hanging there. That's encouraging.
There we go. We were asked the question today, when do we plan to have those lights active? And right now we're in the process of getting ready to work with the city and working with the timeline of when we plan for implementation to figure out when we want that to happen. But as of right now, it looks good and I'm excited about all the work that they're doing out there.
Okay, any questions on that? All right, then the fare free discussion, this was a carryover, we, from the board of directors meeting in April, which we didn't get to address in May. And that was the proposal that we make a recommendation to the board about whether we ought to try to implement a temporary period of fare free service. We had some earlier discussion about that, recognizing that for people for whom gasoline prices were high, that the existing bus system would save them a considerable amount of money without our going through the disruption of now we have fares, now we don't, and not opening the door to some of the difficulties that we've had during fare-free periods. So are you ready to talk about that today and make a recommendation to the board, or what is your?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
You know, some of the other board members had some real concerns about that free traffic in that area. Maybe if we just hold that in committee until the time is right and we discuss it again.
Would you like to defer that item to our next meeting?
Yes.
All right, and okay, we can do that. If that's agreeable to the rest of the. All right, so we'll defer. June, okay. And we'll see what gas prices are doing then too. All right, so on the special COVID-19 subcommittee update, do we have anything new to report, Diane?
Yeah, I actually do. As this meeting was taking place, I was just informed we do have a employee that has tested positive, so we have one. But that's all I have right now for update.
Okay. Well, that is not surprising because the positive tests are going up generally in this area for sure. So it just reminds us. And how is it going with the requirement for masking now there's not a mandate, is that correct?
That's correct.
So what are we experiencing on the buses? Are people generally masking still or not, or?
Find a combination of some do, some don't. I mean, of course, our stance has been we're, highly encouraged.
And how about our drivers? Are they still masking?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions about that?
And what are they asking? Cause people.
The drivers are masking, the passengers have the choice. Yeah. I'm with you, Mr. Fleet. If I'm in a closed space without able to keep the distance, I'm wearing a mask. I could be carrying something around that y'all don't want. Right. Okay, I'm with you. All right, so no action to be taken on the COVID subcommittee update. And that completes our agenda. So all we need is a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion.
And a second.
Second.
And a voice vote, aye.
Aye.
And thank you so much, and thank you for hanging in with us today. All right, bye-bye.